Hello everyone, today's poem is 咏物 by Luo Binwang. It's a poem by a 7-year-old kid, and also it almost the very first poem for a Chinese kid. When he or her start to learn talk, his grandpa or grandma will teach him or her of this poem as a practice to learn the pronunciations as well, and to get the very basic literacy from the classic Chinese literatures. Likewise, this poem is a very good practice for the foreigners who start to learn Mandarin, and use this one as a practice to get familiar with the pronunciation and some of the sounds that not exist in the English, Hispaniola, or some other languages. And as usual, let's talk about the poet first. Luo Binwang was born in the city of Yiwu, a very small place. You may not heard about this place, but you might know Yiwu International Trade City, a huge wholesale market, sell goods and export goods to a lot of countries all over the world. I've been to this place many years ago when it's still in its very primitive status, no market, no wholesale market yet, and I visited my classmates. He lives in a small village in Yiwu, not far from the Yiwu town, and very interesting. When I want to have a shower, he lead me to a pond at not far from the village, a small village, almost several hundred meters away from his home. And we wash ourselves in the pond. So my question to my classmates is, how about the girls and women? Where they have their baths? And he said, in the same pond. Wow, that's a very chaos. How did they manage so many men, boys, and women and girls? How they manage that? He said they have different time frames. Some time frames for women and some time frame is for men. And the villagers, they keep strictly to the rules, and nothing special happens. A very primitive village, but now it's so famous and crowded with people from all the world to do the wholesale business in Yiwu. Luo Binwang was one of the most famous four poet or elite in the early Tang period. 初唐四杰, 初唐 the early Tang dynasty, 四杰 the four famous of the four minstrels, and they share some of the common things. They are all the genius gifted kids, and get their fame in a very early stage, and they all want get some of the positions in the government to contribute to the country, because that's the dream for an educated person in the Tang dynasty. And they all failed to fulfill their dreams and died early. The title of this poem, 咏物, tells us that it belongs one big category of 咏物诗, the song for the objects. So this poem is the song for the goose. The objects is the wu. Objects is not objects. It refers to the animals or the plants. So there's a lot of the poems of this type. So whenever you saw a poem, the whole paragraph is about an animal, cicada, a horse, like this poem about goose, or about the plant, maybe the bamboos, and about the some of the flowers. It belongs to this category. And for the Chinese, or for the poet himself, it's not only about the objects. The purpose to write about these objects is to express his feelings or express his pursuit. So we call it 咏物言志. 咏物, the song for the objects, 言志. So he's telling about his thoughts or his minds. Okay, let's have the poem now. I'll read the poem twice. The first time I will read it in Mandarin. The second time I will read it in the dialect of 陕西 秦腔. Okay, 咏鹅骆宾王。鹅鹅鹅，曲项向天歌。白毛浮绿水，红掌拨清波。Okay, in the dialect of 陕西秦腔，咏鹅骆宾王，鹅鹅鹅，曲项向天歌，白毛浮绿水，红掌拨清波。So all the words in this poem is very simple, because it's by a 7-year-old kid. 鹅 is the name for the swan or goose. Also, it's the sound simulation of the swan's or goose sound. So the first is the sound simulation. Because as a kid, when he heard the goose from a far distance, and he went closer to watch the goose. Let's see. And then he see 曲项向天歌. 项 is the neck. So the goose is the neck of the goose is in curve, and he's singing to the heaven, 天, the sky, the heaven. So it is a very vivid description of how the goose is singing, make the sound. And then the kid, Luo Binwang, the poet, noticed the color, 白毛浮绿水, the white feather. That's the white swan floating on the green water, 绿水, the green water. So that's very pleasant pictures. The white swan on the green crystal water. It could be river, could be lake, doesn't matter. 红掌拨清波. And then the kid noticed the action or the dynamic pictures. The red palm is pushing the clear waves. 清波, the clear waves. So that means before, unless except the sound, it's a sort of the static pictures. The white feather swan is floating on the water, surface of the water. And now actually it's not, because the swan is pushing the water with his or her palm, and is swimming. And it also reflects the elegance of the swan, because if you don't watch very closely, watch carefully, you may not notice the palm is pushing the water. So this shows it's a genius kid normally in a 7 years old, he may notice the sound, but he may not write it down, and with such a careful study or careful descriptions. Okay, let's read it again. It's a very good practice for the pinyin. And is the final so if you're not confident on this on that finals, you can read this poem again and again. 咏鹅骆宾王，鹅鹅鹅，曲项向天歌，白毛浮绿水，红掌拨清波。Okay, that's for today. Bye bye.